I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on GBN, we're diving into a powerful book. It is called Mastering Sales Leadership, a comprehensive guide for managers. It's written by a terrific author by the name of Mark McIlvane. This insightful and action-packed book delivers real-world advice for anyone navigating the high-pressure role of sales manager, whether you were promoted without training or took the job by choice. This book is packed with practical strategies, and it will show you that it is your roadmap to motivating teams, driving results, and becoming the leader your organization needs. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him on TV today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. Mark, thank you so much for joining me here today.
And happy to be here. Thank you.
Off camera, we were talking about it. The lifeblood of really every organization that is selling a product or a service are its salespeople, right?
This is true. I always think of the Norman Vincent Peale quote that nothing ever happens in a company till somebody sells something. And I think that's the key to all great companies, is that they really focus on the sale and actually realize that everybody in the whole company, whether they're a salesperson or not, has to be a salesperson.
Exactly. Your marketing team has to be focused on sales, your public relations team, your C-level executives all have to be focused on the bottom line, which is brought in by your sales force. Has it changed in the digital age? Is it different, or are the principles generally still the same?
Growing up in my career, I was always one of the top salespeople wherever I went, no matter what product I was selling. And it was all kinds of products, voicemail and voice over IP and specialty SS7 signaling in the telephone network. And, no matter what I was selling, I was always one of the top guys. And I wondered, and got asked many times, why are you always one of the top guys? And I never really could come up with an answer that I thought was effective. And then one day I read a book that kind of enlightened me, and it was called Strategic Selling. And it's a book about the sale and about the process of selling. And after I read that book, I said to myself, this is exactly what I know. And what I know is that selling is an exact science. And it's like anything else. If you do the experiment and do the science correct, it'll come out okay. And if you don't, you probably won't get the order. And so since then, that's how I've managed my salespeople from the standpoint of the actual sale itself. But I always felt that salespeople and sales managers didn't really understand the intricate processes within managing a sales force. And there really weren't. I went out and looked around at the Barnes and Nobles and Amazons and places like that where books are available, and never really saw much about sales management. And so I said, you know what, I need to write a book about this.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you feel is the single biggest mistake new sales managers make?
I always say, quit reading your business card. And the reason is that, you've been promoted, but you can't be so wound up with the fact that you've got the promotion and you're doing it that you forget about what the job is. And the job is getting your salespeople to be productive and getting them to work with you and to respect you and to feel like you're a leader rather than a director. And I think the biggest mistake sales managers make is that they want to order people around rather than, become their partner through their sales life journey. And so I outline a lot of that in the book.
Absolutely. What makes managing a sales team different from managing other departments?
I think that's also something that most C-level people don't understand. As a manager is not a manager is not a manager, and especially when it comes to sales. Because when you're talking about sales, selling is hard. If selling wasn't hard, it wouldn't be the highest paid job in the whole company, for the successful ones. And it's hard. It's very difficult. And there's so many intricacies that happen in the sales process. And if you don't really understand that, then you're missing a key factor. And so, as a sales manager, you have to be right on target with what is happening with each one of your salespeople every single day. What's going on with every deal? What is going on from a product standpoint? What's going on from a competitive standpoint? What's the message that has to get out to the customer? All of that has to be done as part of the sales management job. And even though you have a nice marketing department and you have, all these other support elements within the company, none of them really get it right unless you're in the field face to face to the customer and listen to what the customer wants to hear, and then develop tools for the salespeople that allow them to have that message.
It's the only role where the success can actually be quantified. Whether a marketing team's doing their job, we don't really know. How, maybe people feel good or bad about the brand, but are people actually buying the brand? And that's when we know whether the sales department's doing its job or not, right?
And even companies that don't have good brands, if they have good sales, they get orders. So, it's another thing that I've always thought throughout my career is that always sales and marketing should be run by the same person, because you want the marketing department in lockstep with the sales team. And you want the marketing department messaging what the customer's telling them from the field. And the best input for companies with that is getting the input directly from the sales team, rather than going out and paying some consultant, $50,000 to tell you what the customer wants, when at the end of the day, it ends up not even being that anyway.
Exactly. Conversation with your top seller. Is that important when you're a sales manager, to find out why he or she is successful and what they need to be supported, and how their success can be a success for the entire team?
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, I think your top sellers are, first of all, in every selling organization, 80% of the sales are done by 20% of the people.
Yeah.
It just happens that way. And so those 20 percenters are important to everything. And you need to invoke them to be mentors to the 80 percenters, and mentors to the rest of the team, and helping with coming up with messaging for the customer, and helping coming up with how their process works, and so on. I also think that when you really look at a sales manager's job, those 20 percenters are always going to be 20 percenters. And when you're looking at the amount of business that they bring in, 80% of the company's business, you can't press them to get much more than what they're already doing, because they're already doing probably as much as they can possibly do. And what the sales manager's job is to figure out how to get 5% more out of the 80 percenters. And if you get 5% more out of those 80 percenters, that's a top line increase of 30%. And so just a simple task, get 5% more, and engage your top 20 to help you do that.
Great advice. How do you keep a sales team motivated during tough times?
I think it's an individual thing. It's not team, although it is team, but it's also individual. Everybody has their own set of difficulties during tough times. And, I think that what makes a sales manager so great is that when you sit down one-on-one with each one of your people, and you understand where they are, what's their mindset, what help do they need, and then they feel like they're getting it. And if that works like that, it really helps the whole sales process.
What's your advice to someone who was bamboozled into a sales management role?
Well, I think the first advice is ask the question, do you really want to be here?
Mhm.
Because if you're not there for the right reason, which is growing new sales managers, helping the company make its numbers, and creating a successful organization, then you're probably not in the right job. And if you're there thinking you're going to make more money than your top salesperson, you're probably in the wrong job, because it's quite common that they promote top salespeople into the management job, and then they take a dramatic cut in pay, and they weren't really interested in that. And so I think the very first question, if you feel like you've been bamboozled, is to ask yourself, do I really belong here? Because if you don't, nothing's going to be successful.
Let's give the folks at home an overview of the book, how it's structured, what they'll find when they crack the covers.
Yeah, well, I think when you look at the book, there's a lot of discussion about what I just spoke about, are you in the right job? Are you really wanting this? And then once you get through that and you figure out I'm in it for the right reasons, then it outlines a number of things you're going to face as a sales manager that probably not a lot of people have told you about, and things that you as a sales manager have to get ready for when you're faced with it. And I think also it talks quite a bit about how sales is structured within most companies, and how are you supposed to interact with the different people in the company from a sales point of view and from an overall productions point of view. In all companies, I always say that it's not just the sales guys that are salesmen. And the most successful companies I've ever been in was where the CEO would tell everybody in the company, whether you're in HR or you're in operations or you're working in the factory floor or you're a coder or you're a customer service agent or you're a maintenance person or you're a salesperson, everybody in the company is a salesperson. Because when they call up and talk to the support person, that support person can't blame the problem on the customer. They need to be able to have empathy for the customer always, and work with the customer like they were their best friend. And I mean, at the end of the day, the most successful companies in the world, that's how they operate. Everybody in the company really cares about their customer. And I can't tell you how many places I've been where, the finance department or one of the other departments looked at the customer as an enemy, and big problem.
They look at it as an enemy because it represents work to do. Is that what it is?
I believe that's probably a good a view of it, is that it creates more work for them, or it's not within their process or whatever, but I mean, the customer's never the enemy.
Yeah.
We want to keep doing business with them over and over and over again. It's 10 times easier to get an order from a customer you're already doing business with than it is to go after a new customer. So, wake up.
Exactly. This book is a great wake-up call. It is named Mastering Sales Leadership, a comprehensive guide for managers. It is a must-read for every sales leader aiming to drive real impact. Mark, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you, and have a terrific day.
I appreciate your time, your insight, and your wit and your wisdom. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford for GBN. So long for now.